suspension was discussed both at a committee level and at the board, and ultimately the league office was tasked by our board with doing an in-depth.
Welcome back, WNBA fans. Something major is happening around CaitlinClark, AdamSilver, and the future direction of professional basketball, and the latest developments have sparked a massive conversation across the league. After the recent moves involving Clark and the New York Liberty, questions are being raised about how much influence Silver and the NBA now have over the WNBA's future. So what exactly is happening? And why has the situation created so much attention? Let's break it all down. Professional basketball appears to be entering a completely different era, and much of the conversation centers around one name that has dominated headlines for months: CaitlinClark. While fans have been focused on statistics, shooting percentages, rivalries, and individual performances, the bigger story may be happening behind the scenes. AdamSilver and the NBA have increasingly recognized that Clark represents something far larger than one player. She has become a major driver of attention, ticket demand, television audiences, merchandise sales, and broader interest in women's basketball. For years, the WNBA operated with a slower growth mentality and a structure that often treated the league as a developing property. But the Clark era has challenged that approach. The question is no longer simply how quickly the WNBA can grow. The question is how aggressively the league should capitalize on an unprecedented opportunity. If you enjoy this kind of basketball analysis, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. More than 73% of viewers still haven't subscribed, so if you're enjoying the content, joining the channel takes only a second and helps us continue bringing you the biggest stories. Now back to the situation. The power structure around professional basketball appears to be changing, and not everyone is necessarily comfortable with that change. Some longtime players and supporters believe the league should protect the traditions and culture built over decades. Others believe that refusing to evolve would be an even bigger mistake. From a business perspective, however, the numbers surrounding Clark have made the conversation impossible to ignore. The Clark phenomenon does not appear to be simply a temporary burst of attention. Her arrival has brought millions of new viewers into the sport, and that creates enormous commercial possibilities. The implications go far beyond jersey sales. The way games are marketed, televised, officiated, promoted, and presented to casual fans is increasingly important. And that creates a difficult balancing act for the league. The WNBA must respect the veterans who helped build the product, while also understanding why a new generation of fans is arriving because of Clark. When Clark entered the professional game, everyone expected some adjustment. No rookie enters the WNBA without facing difficult defenses, physical competition, and experienced opponents. What surprised many fans, however, was the intensity surrounding her every game. Hard fouls, aggressive defensive possessions, and highly physical moments quickly became major talking points. Some supporters viewed those moments as normal basketball. Others believed certain plays crossed the line into unnecessary physicality. Regardless of where people stood, the league office eventually had to consider the larger implications. If the league's most recognizable young star repeatedly gets injured or removed from games, the consequences extend beyond one player or one team. Television partners, sponsors, ticket buyers, and casual viewers are all affected. That is why the conversation surrounding officiating has become so important. The argument from the league's business perspective is straightforward. Fans want to see the stars play. They want fast transitions, high-scoring games, deep three-pointers, exciting passes, and memorable moments. Clark is particularly valuable to that model because her style of play naturally produces those highlights. Her ability to shoot from enormous distances and create opportunities for teammates makes her one of the league's most marketable players. Critics, however, argue that protecting a superstar too aggressively risks creating one set of expectations for Clark and another for everyone else. That concern has contributed to frustration among some players and fans who believe the rules should be applied consistently. This tension between competitive fairness and entertainment value is one of the biggest challenges facing the WNBA. Another major point of discussion involves the Olympic selection process and Clark's place within the broader basketball hierarchy. Her absence from the Olympic roster generated enormous debate. Supporters believed her popularity and production deserved consideration, while others argued that roster decisions should be based primarily on established international performance and team fit. The controversy demonstrated something important. Clark is no longer simply a basketball player. Every decision involving her becomes part of a much larger cultural conversation. Whether the decision is about playing time, officiating, marketing, travel, television exposure, or national team selection, people immediately ask whether Clark is receiving special treatment, or whether she is being unfairly denied opportunities. That level of attention creates an enormous amount of pressure on the league and on Clark herself. The financial transformation surrounding the WNBA is another major piece of this story. The league's expanding media value has changed the way executives, broadcasters, sponsors, and investors look at women's basketball. A massive new television agreement can fundamentally alter the financial future of the league. More media revenue means greater possibilities for salaries, facilities, travel, marketing, player development, and expansion. And Clark's impact has become an important part of that broader business conversation. Her ability to attract audiences has demonstrated that there is a huge potential market for women's basketball. This is why the NBA's corporate structure is paying much closer attention. The WNBA is increasingly being treated not simply as a developing women's league, but as an important part of a much larger global basketball ecosystem. That shift can bring tremendous benefits, but it also creates new expectations. Higher production standards, more national broadcasts, better facilities, improved travel, and stronger marketing all require significant investment. One of the clearest examples is charter travel. For years, WNBA players dealt with the difficulties of commercial travel, including delays, crowded airports, security lines, and scheduling problems. As the league grew and attention around major stars increased, the argument for private travel became stronger. Charter flights are expensive, but they also provide greater security, convenience, recovery time, and consistency for players. For teams and league officials, that investment represents more than luxury. It represents a commitment to presenting the WNBA as a major professional sports property. At the same time, smaller market teams have to consider the financial consequences of dramatically increased operating costs. The league's growth creates opportunities, but it also creates pressure. That pressure becomes even more obvious when discussing expansion. The WNBA is moving toward a larger footprint, with new markets creating opportunities for more players, more games, more merchandise, more television inventory, and more fans. Cities such as Portland, Toronto, and Golden State have become part of the expansion conversation, showing just how quickly the league's ambitions are changing. The challenge is maintaining competitive quality while adding franchises at an accelerated pace. Expansion drafts can disrupt existing rosters, and current players may face uncertainty about their futures. Yet from a business perspective, the opportunity is enormous. Every new team creates another market and another revenue stream. And the timing is closely connected to the extraordinary attention surrounding the current generation of stars. The league also appears to be embracing the reality that rivalry and controversy drive engagement. For years, the WNBA often emphasized unity, professionalism, and collective progress. But modern sports marketing understands that conflict can generate enormous attention. Rivalries involving CaitlinClark, Angel Reese, and other young stars have become major social media stories. Every matchup generates debates about ratings, performance, popularity, and the future of the league. Some players may feel uncomfortable with being placed into hero versus villain narratives, but from a marketing standpoint, those storylines create engagement. Fans pick sides. They debate online. They watch games they might otherwise ignore. They buy tickets because they want to see the rivalry in person. The danger is that the league must avoid turning legitimate competition into manufactured drama. If fans begin believing that players are being exploited simply to create controversy, the strategy could eventually backfire. But so far, the attention surrounding these rivalries has been enormous. That brings us back to officiating. The argument that the league is becoming more offensive-minded is not difficult to understand. Modern basketball rewards spacing, shooting, pace, and offensive creativity. Clark's game fits perfectly into that environment. A player who can launch from well beyond the three-point line becomes far more valuable when defenders are prevented from constantly grabbing, holding, or excessively bumping her. The result is a faster and more visually appealing product. Coaches who built defensive systems around, they may feel that years of experience and defensive identity are being pushed aside for entertainment. But the league sees another side of the equation. Casual viewers may not understand every defensive scheme, but they understand a 30-foot three-pointer. They understand a spectacular pass. They understand a fast break in a high-scoring game. Those are the moments that spread across social media and attract new audiences. That creates a difficult question. How much of the traditional game should change to attract a larger audience? There is no simple answer. The WNBA cannot completely abandon the physical style that helped define it, but it also cannot ignore the preferences of a new generation of viewers. The challenge is finding a balance between competitive integrity and modern entertainment. The same tension exists between veterans and younger players. Veteran players spent years building the league when salaries, travel conditions, facilities, and media coverage were significantly more limited. Now they are watching a younger generation arrive to enormous attention and unprecedented opportunities. Some may understandably feel that the newcomers are receiving benefits that previous generations had to fight for. Others may view the current growth as the reward for everything those veterans helped establish. Both perspectives can be true at the same time. The veterans built the foundation, while the new generation is helping turn that foundation into something much larger. CaitlinClark sits directly at the center of that transformation. She faces an unusual burden because she is not simply being evaluated as a player. Every game is analyzed through the lens of her influence on the league. When she scores, people talk about ratings. When she struggles, people question her development. When she gets fouled, the officiating becomes a debate. When she is left off a major roster, people question the league's decision-making. When she signs a major deal, people discuss the economics of women's sports. That is an extraordinary amount of pressure for any athlete. Yet it also demonstrates how important the current moment is. The WNBA is no longer fighting simply for recognition. It is fighting to determine what it wants to become. The financial upside is enormous. If the league continues growing its television audiences, ticket sales, sponsorships, merchandise, and international reach, players could eventually benefit through dramatically larger salaries. The same players who feel uncomfortable with the current changes could ultimately become the biggest financial beneficiaries of them. But growth also creates risk. Expansion can dilute talent if it happens too quickly. Commercial pressure can overwhelm competitive considerations. Marketing can become too dependent on individual personalities, and a league that grows rapidly can struggle to maintain the culture that made it special. Those are the challenges AdamSilver and league leadership must navigate. The biggest question may not even be about CaitlinClark specifically. It may be about whether the league can build a system that works for every superstar who comes after her. Clark is the current catalyst, but she will not be the final major star. Another generation will eventually arrive. The league must decide whether the lessons learned during the Clark era will become permanent policy, or whether this moment is simply a unique experiment. If the league protects and promotes every future superstar with the same intensity, it could establish an entirely new standard for women's professional basketball. If it does not, critics will inevitably question why Clark received such extraordinary attention. Either way, the precedent is being created right now. The WNBA has reached a crossroads. One path emphasizes tradition, patience, and gradual development. The other embraces aggressive growth, massive investment, global marketing, expanded media exposure, and a more NBA-style commercial model. Neither path is guaranteed to succeed. But one thing is undeniable. The league is changing faster than it ever has before. CaitlinClark did not create every challenge facing the WNBA, and AdamSilver did not single-handedly create the league's current growth. This transformation is the result of many forces coming together: talented players, passionate fans, social media, television partners, investors, sponsors, and a generation of athletes who have spent years raising the level of women's basketball. Clark simply became the spark that made the world pay attention at a completely different level. Now the league has to decide what to do with that attention. If the WNBA can turn this momentum into sustainable growth while protecting competitive fairness and respecting the players who built the league, the potential is enormous. The future could include bigger salaries, larger audiences, more international stars, better facilities, expanded franchises, and a level of cultural influence that women's basketball has never experienced before. But if the league prioritizes short-term attention over long-term credibility, the same momentum could create serious problems. That is why every decision involving Clark feels so significant. Her situation has become a symbol of a much larger transformation. The old WNBA and the emerging WNBA are colliding in real time. Veterans are demanding respect. Young stars are demanding opportunity. Fans are demanding entertainment. Executives are demanding growth. And broadcasters are demanding a product that can compete for attention in an increasingly crowded sports market. AdamSilver and the league now have to balance all of those demands. The stakes are enormous, and there may be no easy way forward. What happens next could determine whether the current explosion of interest becomes a temporary phenomenon or the beginning of a permanent revolution in women's professional sports. The WNBA that existed only a few years ago is already changing. The question is how far that transformation will go. Will the league continue accelerating its expansion? Will players eventually receive dramatically higher salaries? Will the media landscape continue growing? Will rivalries become an even bigger part of the league's identity? And most importantly, will CaitlinClark remain the central figure in this transformation, or will the next generation eventually take that role? Nobody knows the answers yet, but that uncertainty is exactly what makes this era so fascinating. The biggest story is no longer simply what CaitlinClark does on the court. It is what her presence has forced the entire basketball industry to reconsider. The WNBA is entering a new chapter, and the decisions made now could shape women's basketball for decades. The growth is real, the attention is massive, and the opportunities are bigger than ever. But with opportunity comes responsibility. The league must find a way to grow without losing its identity, promote stars without alienating veterans, increase entertainment without compromising fairness, and embrace the future without forgetting the people who built the foundation. That will be the real test. The CaitlinClark era has already changed the conversation. Now everyone is waiting to see just how far that change will go.